Good morning and welcome to the Indiana Retired Teachers Association's first IRTA Retiredside Chat. I'm sure you've heard of fireside chats that started with President Roosevelt in the 30s and 40s. Many groups have duplicated this approach for sharing information. When I started discussing the idea with staff and our IRTA board, our very own IRTA Director of Communication, Josie Savada, came up with the term Retiredside Chat, and it stuck. It was decided that this would be the best way to describe why we are pushing information out to you, our members. Starting in 2022, I will be bringing topics of interest using this format throughout the year. Joining me today is IRTA's lobbyist, Steve Beebe, to give us a brief overview of IRTA's advocacy for your pension enhancements. Steve, can you please give us some history on previous requests for a COLA?
Sure. I have been fortunate enough to represent IRTA since 2013. And when I first began, we strongly advocated for a COLA, and we did that through about 2018, and we had good support, strong support from the House of Representatives on passing a COLA, but we couldn't get it past the Senate. The Senate, they were consistently opposed to it. At the time, the chairman of appropriations was Senator Luke Kinley, and he would meet with Nancy Tolson and I every session. He showed a lot of patience, with us, and he explained that his number one priority, was to protect our pensions, so we wouldn't, find ourselves, the state wouldn't find itself potentially in a default, situation. And then he made it clear that the Senate did not support the COLA because it represented an ongoing expenditure. With a 13th check, it's a finite amount of money and it's a one-time expenditure. With the COLA, it's an expenditure that continues year after year after year, and it's much harder to calculate the fiscal impact, and the Senate didn't like that approach. And we were, told year after year that was going to be the case. Finally, about 2018, after being told no so many times, and having a chance to, to really analyze and think a little bit more about, what would be better for the most of IRTA members, it was decided that we would turn our advocacy efforts, towards a 13th check. And that's really what we have done beginning, it was like 2018, 19, 20, and 21. 3 of those years we were successful with the 13th check. In 2021, much to my surprise, and I think yours, the legislator granted us, a COLA. And I want to talk a little bit about the history there, too, because, again, we had good support from the House for a 13th check. Representative Mike Karakoff, authored House Bill 1227. That was a 13th check plus a $50 increase. And that bill passed out of the House 99-0, or 99-1. There was one dissenting vote, and it had nothing, to do with the merits of our issue. This gentleman was casting a protest vote on a completely separate issue, and it made no sense. But that was the one no vote. So we've got strong support. We've got momentum going into the Senate. that bill moves to the Senate, and it didn't receive a committee hearing in the Senate, but that was not unusual. That did not raise any red flags for me, because that's the way the Senate has handled it the last 3 budget sessions. They would wait and just put the appropriation in the budget at the end of the session, and we really didn't have to have the bill. So when it didn't get a hearing, it really didn't cause me any concern, didn't raise any red flags. We go through the second half of the session. I continue to talk to legislators about the 13th check. I know we had lots of support in the Republican caucus for a 13th check. And it wasn't until near the very end of session that I had a conversation with Representative Greg Walker, Senator Greg Walker. And, he is someone that I talked to about pension issues lots of times. And he is one that is good at understanding the financial, issues. And it was a different conversation, and I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. But, my hindsight's pretty darn good. And, what I believe was he either knew or thought maybe that a COLA was going to be the option over the 13th check, and he just either couldn't or wasn't going to tell me that. And I didn't know for sure. I ran into Senator Ryan Mishler, who chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee, and this was the day before the end of session. I ran into him at the bank. He saw me, called me in, and we stood in the bank and talked for 15 or 20 minutes, and he told me that it was going to be a COLA. He told me the budget bill was already at the printer, so it was too late, to make any changes. And I don't think he would have made changes anyway, but that, that was his reasoning. He couldn't make any changes. So, we ended up, with a 1% COLA, and, that's really, it's really a pretty good thing. It's just not what we asked for. It's not what we wanted. It's not what we anticipated. And it's, looking at the numbers with our membership and the data, it's not what benefits most of our members.
Well, and we were not able to prepare our members until after the fact. We were able to tell them afterwards, but not prepare them beforehand. And as you know, I've received a lot of phone calls, but we do have a lot of members that like that 1% COLA. Several are very disappointed because they relied on the 13th check. So that's been the ongoing battle. The legislature's support for retired teachers in 2021 showed that they funded the stabilization fund, buying down the debt, and the pre-96 fund. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. I mentioned in my, opening remarks that, Senator Kenley always told Nancy and I one of his priorities was, to make sure, that our pension fund would always be there, for retirees. And, one of the things that the legislature created back in the 70s to make sure that the pensions were funded, had the funding, so they would continue to be viable, was they created the Pension Stabilization Fund. And this last session in the budget, there was a 2-year appropriation. In 2021, it was just under $1 billion, not $1 million, but $1 billion And then in 2022, it was just over, $1 billion. So that money is going into the pension stabilization fund, to make sure that all retirees, will receive their pension, for as long as they live. The other thing that they did, there were a couple of things that they did. They also bought down the unfunded liability in the pre-96 fund by $600 million. I mean, that's a pretty significant, investment. They had to put $50 million into the supplemental reserve account to have enough money to pay for the COLA. And then the final thing that they did was there's a provision in Indiana that if there's a surplus greater than 12.5% of the budget, that money is returned to the taxpayers. This year, every Indiana taxpayer is going to receive a $125 refund because of that. Well, they changed that at the end of the next budget cycle. If there's that same kind of budget surplus, that's not going to go back to individuals. It's going to go to pay down the debt of the pre-96 fund. So there's, in my opinion, there's been a significant commitment, made to retired teachers. And really, the most important thing, is to guarantee that those pensions, will always be there for as long as you live. And, the legislature, they have done that.
And I know that we've tried to relay that to our members over and over, but they come back with, and I understand because I do too, this sounds great, but now what are we going to do moving forward? What are we going to do in the next session and beyond?
We are always going to continue to advocate for what's in the best interest, of retired teachers. This year is not a budget year. The session starts tomorrow, and I don't think that we can expect to receive any type of additional appropriation this year. I don't think that's, in the cards. But we are going to have a couple bills filed. Mike Karakoff, I believe, is going to file a bill that would allow a retiree a choice of either a COLA or a 13th check. And there's a lot of details to work out around that, but we can work those details out if that bill starts to move. I think IRTA, the Association for Retired Public Employees, they're going to have a bill calling for a 13th check, and we're going to talk to legislators about those bills. We're going to talk about how a 13th check benefits more of our members. We have the data. We can show them. We can show them the numbers, and we need to keep the discussion alive. We need to keep that issue alive in their minds. And we're going to do that through this session. We get to the next interim next summer, and pension issues and any pension enhancement always is vetted at the Pension Management Study Commission. And we hope to use the discussion and momentum from session to obtain more discussion at PMOC. And, again, heading into the next budget session, that's a couple of years off, but I'm assuming we'll be advocating for a 13th check, or maybe the Karakoff idea will catch on, which would, allow our members, and it wouldn't be every year, but would allow our members to choose either a 13th check or a COLA. And if we're going to get that done, we've got to start that work now. We can't wait until right before the next budget session begins.
That's one thing that I've tried to share with our members. The reason we brought you in today is that the work never stops. I plan to be at the State House quite a bit with you in the upcoming months and years. It doesn't stop. We're continuously going to advocate for our members to get a pension enhancement. And unfortunately, it's not always what we want, but we're always going to be seeking what's best for everyone. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. This is just kind of an example of what our Retiredside Chats are going to be like, discussing topics that are of interest to our members, topics that are current, and giving information out that may help you in your retired lifestyles that you are all living, hopefully at this time. If you have topics, any area that you would like us to cover, please call or email me, because I want the information to be something that you need to hear at this time. And so please don't hesitate to let me know what you would like to see as future topics. Thank you for joining us today. I hope everybody is staying warm during these winter months. And again, if you have any questions about what was discussed today, don't hesitate to email or give us a call. Thank you.